everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Atheist community of Polk County on the yet-to-be-named show. We haven't quite figured out what we're going to call it yet. I'm Sarah. I'm one of the directors of the Atheist community of Polk County, and joining me tonight is Joseph Richardson, who is one of the directors of the Central Florida Freethought community. Joseph, thanks for coming down.
Glad to be here. Thanks very much for having me. May the 4th be with you.
And also with you. For the Catholics in the crowd.
And Episcopalians.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
So tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about secular invocations. This is something that your team does a lot of work around, and you've got some things coming up. There's an event coming up here in Polk County that we're excited about. So we'll talk about that. I also want to talk about some legislative things that have been happening in the state of Florida.
Okay.
And there was an article published in the Ledger today.
Yay.
About our group that I'm going to read it, but I want to go through and talk about some things. So, first, let's start with you and your organization and the work that you're doing with church-state separation in the area of invocations at governmental meetings. And we've talked to you before on other media endeavors that we do. So let's go backward before we talk about what's happening now. Talk about sort of the history of invocating in general, maybe, and then bring us up to the secular invocation and why that's so important.
Sure. So invocations, most people think of them as a prayer to open the municipal governmental meetings, and they've been going on for a long time. There are claims that go back to the Continental Congress about that, but we're not going to go through all of that. But they have been going on for quite a while. Of course, you're probably aware that they do them to open sessions in Congress, at a federal level.
Right.
And what happened was some years ago, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, there were a couple of women in the county of Greece, New York, or the township of Greece, New York, I guess it is, and they were not happy that the way the invocations were going in their municipal meetings, and they sued. Long story short, it worked its way up to the Supreme Court, and 5 years ago, this month, in fact, today.
Oh, wow.
I almost forgot. Is it today? Today or tomorrow?
Okay.
I forget. We'll have to Google it real quick.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court handed down a decision, and today might be the 5-year anniversary of this, that said it's okay for municipal meetings to have invocations to open their meetings as long as the process is non-discriminatory.
Right.
And they even were kind of explicit in their decision saying that even atheists and humanists can do an invocation. So since then...
No, that was a bit of a departure from initial court rulings on the issue, right? If I'm remembering right, the Marsh v. Chambers was a 1983 Nebraska Supreme Court ruling that just said legislative prayer did not violate the Establishment Clause, and that was kind of full stop it. And then Greece went further to say, yes, and you also have to be non-discriminatory, and that includes specifically these other groups.
Yeah, yes, sort of.
Okay.
Yes, sort of. Because Marsh v. Chambers was about the state-level legislative prayers,
right?
And the courts looked at them differently than they look at more local meetings.
Right.
So Greece versus Galloway was a departure in that sense as well, not only in the fact that they had to be non-discriminatory, but in the way that they were treated by the courts because of the difference between the local versus the state or even the federal level.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and they consider school boards differently from city councils and other government.
Yep, they're an even further step removed. A further step removed. I don't know how to say that because there are often students at school board meetings, and so it's a different crowd. And they're even more restrictive there.
Yeah.
So anyway, since Greece versus Galloway came down, we have, they said that the invocations had to be non-discriminatory. So we said, okay, well, let's do them. Let's participate. Let's be full participants in our local governments. And so we started asking to do invocations around the area, and so far we've done, I think, about somewhere between 75 and 80
Wow.
in the last 5 years.
And you're getting ready
So
to sort of celebrate this 5-year milestone, right? With
that's
all of the invocations that you've done.
that's correct. Yeah, at our next monthly meeting, we're going to have a little celebration for that.
What do you make of the folks who might say, by participating in the invocation process, that you are in some way just as bad as the religionists who are trying to insert their beliefs into our government? I know how I would answer that, but I'd like to hear how you'd answer that.
Well, I think I would take issue with just as bad.
Yeah.
The courts have said that we're allowed to do it, and that we should be treated as equal participants in our government, in our municipal activities. And so if that's the way it's going to be, we want to participate.
Yeah.
Our position is that if we were deciding, if it were up to us, we would not have invocations.
That's where I was. Yeah, that's where I land.
Yeah.
Let's just not do them.
Yeah.
Moment of silence, maybe, but otherwise,
right.
Let's get down to business.
Yeah, but if they're going to have them, then we don't want to be excluded from that.
Absolutely.
So,
let's talk about the specific work that you've been doing in Winter Garden. You've had some resistance to your requests to be included equally in this process.
Yeah. So 4 or 5 days after Greece versus Galloway came down, on May 9th, so this will be 5 years,
right,
as of Thursday next week, I sent an email to the City of Winter Garden and said, hey, what can I do to do an invocation for one of your meetings? And they wrote back and they said, well, we usually have a commissioner do it, and or maybe we'll have a pastor do it if he's in the audience or something like that. And I wrote them back and I said, well, based on Greece versus Galloway, and perhaps you should reconsider that policy. And then some other stuff happened which kind of messed up the whole conversation. But the bottom line is that they decided to go to a moment of silence for a while, for 6 months.
Which would have been fine.
Which was fine.
Yep,
perfectly fine.
Right.
If you're not going to do it, that's fine.
Right.
We're
It's
just talking about
inclusive.
that.
It's inclusive.
It is inclusive.
Yeah.
And then about 6 months later, they said, no, we don't like the moment of silence. We're going to bring it back, and we're going to bring it back with this set of rules. And it turned out that this set of rules included the fact that the commissioners got to choose in turn who they wanted to do the invocations. So, and there's very little restriction on who they have to choose.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is that they can just not choose anybody that they don't like, anybody they don't want to hear from, for any reason whatsoever.
I think there's no rule saying, like, if you and I are commissioners and I have my favorite faith leader speaker that I like to have come in, and I could pick the same one every time.
Well, that's one of the restrictions, actually. You're not allowed to pick the same guy or girl more than twice in a 12-month period.
Okay.
So you can't have the same person too often. But if you got a person that you don't like, that you don't want to hear from, you never
just don't
have
pick
to pick
them.
them.
Right.
Yeah.
Man.
So we've been asking them to change that now for 4.5 years. So.
And here we are, no movement.
Oh yeah, they haven't done anything about that.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh right. Yeah. Now it seemed like there was about to be some new information handed down, a new maybe a change in policy or reconsideration of the way that they're doing that, and then that just kind of hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. Well, I have kept up the activity for the last 3.5 years or so, 3 years, and I have spoken during public comments at close to 40 meetings, talking about the problems with the invocation policy, about the discriminatory aspects of the policy, how they aren't obeying their own rules, things like this. And they have listened politely and not done anything. And so then about a year ago, a little over a year ago, I started a petition, and so that they could hear from other people other than me.
Right.
Right? So they can say, look, here's
Right.
all
It's
these
not.
other people.
It's not just this one guy who's angry about it. There's
Right.
a whole community out there.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've been collecting signatures for the last year or so, and you can actually still sign the petition if you want for the next 4 or 5 days. And we'll get a link to you some way or another. But
Yeah. Go ahead and say it. I'll put it in the comments too.
you can go to tinyurl.com/WG for Winter Garden, WG petition, tinyurl.com/WG petition. And that'll redirect you to the actual petition at change.org. And you're welcome to sign it. You do not have to be a resident of Winter Garden to sign it. It's not a binding petition. So anyway, so we're going to present that petition next week. But referring to, you said that there was about to be some action on Winter Garden's part. So a couple of meetings ago, the city manager announced that they were going to be bringing changes to the invocation policy at the April 25th meeting. So this is the meeting prior to the May 9th meeting where we're actually going to present the petition. So April 25th comes around, it's not on the agenda, and the city manager says, oh, we were too busy the last couple of weeks. We're going to bring the changes to the May 9th meeting. So the May 9th agenda came out yesterday, and there is still nothing on the agenda about the invocation policy changes. So I don't know what they're going to do.
And if you go into the May 9th meeting and it magically appears on the agenda and they say, okay, here's the new plan and it's something that's acceptable, then good, great.
Exactly. We'll say, thank you very much. Here is the petition, but we appreciate the fact that you've listened and you've modified the policy in line with what we've been requesting, and
right.
not now it's non-discriminatory. That'd be great.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. So talk before we move on. Go back a little bit to the restrictions, the rules that they placed on the process.
Yeah.
Wasn't one of them at one point they tried or did and still do? There's been this thing has been moving so many times that it's hard to keep track of. But I think I recall something about like you had to be on the list, and then you had to be on the list, and you had to be part of a 501c3 organization,
right,
to be on the list,
right,
which leaves out tons of people.
Yeah, exactly. That's part
Still
of the
not
discrimination.
Inclusive. Yeah.
So originally, when they first brought back the invocations, the 501c3 restriction was not an issue. It was just you just had to be I don't know. I can't even remember now what it was, but you had to be a resident or somehow involved with Winter Garden, and they'd put you on the list, and then the commissioners were supposed to choose from the list. And then some months after that, they said, well, their excuse was to make it easier for the city to manage the list, that in order to be on the list, you had to be representing a 501c3, so you had to be a Winter Garden resident representing a 501c3, or you had to be a representative of an organization, a 501c3 organization that had a presence in Winter Garden.
Okay.
So either the 501c3 had to have a connection to Winter Garden, or the representative had to. And at that point, I was just on the list as a resident, and as soon as that went into effect, I asked for a new copy of the list using public records request, and magically my name was gone from the list. So I wrote him and I said, no. I said, I'm representing the Central Florida Freethought community. They're a 501c3.
Yeah.
And so they're like, okay, we'll put you back on the list. So, but then they still never choose me. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's ridiculous.
So yeah, there's multiple ways in which they're discriminating in this case. Because besides me, there were actually other Winter Garden residents that we had on the list, and they're not associated with any 501c3, and they've never been able to be on the list since then. They just wanted to be on as residents, and now they can't even be on the list. So,
in Winter Garden, do the invocators tend to skew towards a particular denomination or faith tradition over more than others?
Yeah. Like 97% 98% of them have been Protestant Christian invocations. I think there's been one Catholic invocation, one Jewish invocation. We actually have had 2 secular invocations. Early on, there was a friend of ours who, before the 501c3 restriction, he gave a secular invocation. Because he's not associated with a 501c3, now he's off the list. More recently, there was a woman who is associated with the Unitarian Universalist Church, and she was selected to do an invocation, and she decided to give a completely secular invocation.
Good.
And it was good.
Yeah.
So there's actually been 2 secular invocations in Winter Garden, but some people still can't be chosen.
Right.
Yeah.
That's frustrating. Well, we will, of course, share out all of that information. And the link is in the comments here, but we'll put it in the notes when we post it on all of the different platforms. And that was tinyurl.com/WG petition if you want to go sign the petition. If you can make it, you are super welcome to come out to Winter Garden and support our friends with the Central Florida Freethought community in the work that they're doing there. I know you guys are getting together for a bite to eat beforehand, and then maybe a decompression session afterwards.
Yeah. So May 9th is the date of the next meeting, and that's where we will be presenting the petition. And it'll be at Winter Garden City Hall, downtown Winter Garden on Plant Street at 6:30 in the evening. We're going to meet at the Plant Street Market at 5 o'clock to just to hang out together before the meeting, have a bite to eat if you want, and we'll hang out afterwards too.
But before that, we have a closer one that you can come to also.
That's right.
Get to know some of these folks from the Central Florida Freethought community if you haven't already. They're a great group of people. Let me just step in here to say for a moment, and I went on and on and on about this on my podcast last week, but I am so thankful for you all and your mentorship. When you decide, hey, I'm going to start a nonprofit organization and the state of Florida that's focused on these things. That's daunting. There's a lot of work to that. A lot of pieces that people probably don't realize that go into it, and things that you have to do to make sure that you're, on the right side of the law and following all the rules and all of those things. And just all of the resources that one would need to answer those questions. I know that I can pick up the phone and call you guys.
Absolutely,
and you're there. And that has been so great.
Glad we could help out, and I must say I'm very impressed at how far you guys have come in such a short time.
I don't go slow. In fact, I think I mentioned that in the article. Like, if I'm gonna do it, man, let's do it. Yeah. I want to do it, and I can see the vision. I can see what I want it to be. What the things that I would like for it to become, and things that we should be doing, and I want it, so I just do it.
Excellent.
One extreme or the other.
Yeah.
All or none. Yeah. So May 7th. My birthday.
Oh, it is.
I took my birthday off work to come hang out with you all.
Oh, nice.
We are all going to be at the Polk County Commissioners meeting.
Yay. To
support the Central Florida Freethought community, who is presenting a secular invocation.
That's right. We have been trying for 3 or 4 years to get into Polk County, and it hasn't been because they've resisted us. It's just the way their policy works. We 1 year I forgot to send something in. The next year they said, "Oh, we thought you weren't interested." And so it was kind of a back and forth for a couple of years before we got it straightened out. And this year we got in, and we're going to. I'm going to give the invocation on May 7th at the Polk County Commissioners meeting, and looking forward to it. It will be, as far as I know, the first secular invocation in Polk County. I went through the last more than 2 years worth of meetings and looked at all the invocations that had been given, and there were 54.
Hold on, let me guess.
Okay.
97, 98, 99% Protestant Christian.
You were very, very close. Yes. There were 54 meetings, and 52 of them were Protestant Christian invocations. A lot of Baptists, some Presbyterians, things like that. One was a moment of silence where the guy didn't show up for the meeting, and one was a Baha'i. If you can believe that.
Wow.
So it was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But,
and again, please don't take my comments to be disparaging. You can pray if you want to. The law allows, but
Sure.
also requires that we have equal time and access to. That's all that. It seems to me that if I were, I don't know, maybe a Polk County resident who's a Muslim, that would piss me off too.
Yeah.
Just that overwhelming lean towards one particular faith over all others and none.
Right.
That's frustrating.
Right.
And I would love if we're all going to do it and it's going to be open and fair and free for all of us to participate. I would love for people of other faiths to come up and do an invocation too. I think that would be fantastic.
Right.
I'm all for that.
To actually demonstrate the diversity that exists in Polk County.
Yep.
I know that Polk County is certainly quite conservative, quite conservative Christian, but it is not 100% conservative Christian. And for the Polk County to recognize that and allow us to start with to give an invocation is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So be there or be square. All of these events are also on the Atheist Community Polk County Facebook page, Facebook group, and the Meetup app. We have a Meetup page also, and all of these events that we've been talking about are on there also. So if you're interested in dates and times and where we're going to meet for breakfasts and stuff like that, that's where you go. All right. So that's what's going on in invocations right now. Let's talk about a couple more things before we go. I'd like to share with you the good news.
Have I heard this good news already?
I believe you have. The good news that the legislative session in Florida has come to a close, and and thankfully House Bill 195, which would have created a voluntary Bible class in all of our high schools, in our public schools.
A required voluntary.
Yeah.
Required class, voluntary attendance.
Right. Yeah. Every school would have been required to implement an elective class studying the Bible, which they said should be objective and have a secular approach, which I'm not sure how you do. And in places where those classes already exist, Texas, people have gone in and studied them, and lo and behold, they're not being taught very objectively after all.
It's very hard to do.
Big surprise. So anyway, we had a very close brush. Our friend in the legislature, Kimberly Daniels, self-described demon buster from House District 14, I believe.
I don't know, Jacksonville.
Yeah. She has been filing all of these Project Blitz bills. She filed the one that put In God We Trust in all of our schools, and then used the tragedy at Parkland to advance that bill, saying that, basically we needed, and our own Kelly Stargell, senator here in Polk County, was on the record as being in favor of that too, that, boy, if we just had some God back in our schools, and things would be better. And she filed a bill and passed, I believe in 2017, that it basically reaffirmed what's already law, that schools can't discriminate against a student, teacher, or administrators' right to pray or wear religious iconography or those kinds of things, which are already covered in law. But it was an affirmation of that into the state law.
Yeah,
that one passed, and all three of those are Project Blitz initiatives, which is put on by the Congressional Prayer Caucus Foundation, and they have tons of money, and they're moving through all of the state legislatures, pushing this stuff down. I spoke at the Central Florida Freethought community on Project Blitz, and as soon as that video gets edited and put together, we'll share it on our channels too, so that you can check it out, because there is a lot to it that I'm just not going to have time to cover here. Right. And I already covered it, so you should just watch that one.
There you go.
But House Bill 195, the Bible class bill, for this year at least, has been, quote, indefinitely postponed and withdrawn from consideration, end quote. So I think that's a good thing.
Where's your applause track? Right
Yeah,
here.
yeah. I need my sound cues. The last thing I wanted to talk about, sort of briefly here, is the article that published to the Ledger today. And now I thought this was going to come out on Sunday. So imagine my surprise when I was awoken in the afternoon to a million alerts on my phone and messages and comments, and my phone had just gone crazy that this article had dropped online. At least we looked at the print edition for today, and it was not on there. So I don't know if it will be in the print edition. I assume it will be, but it is definitely on the Ledger's website if you want to go check that out. I'm going to read some of that to share with you, but let me set the stage. So we were approached. There have been comments that showed some concern that we were attention-seeking by doing this. And I can tell you that I did not ask for this, nor did either of the other directors of the atheist community of Polk County. We were reached out to by a writer at the Ledger after I had written a letter to the editor a couple of months ago about this Bible class bill. And so then I wrote this letter to the editor, I sent it in, they published it. I was kind of surprised. But then 2 or 3 months go by, and then I get this request, hey, we'd like to talk to you guys and maybe do a story about your group and what you guys are doing and all of that stuff. And so he came and joined us at one of our social meetups. Now, we haven't had many of those. Again, we're just getting started, and we're starting to grow and do more things. We had a really good turnout in spite of that. So it was good for that opportunity too, because as a journalist, he's trying to get from me what the organization is about and what we want to accomplish, and then from those in attendance, why are you here? What interests you in being a part of a group like this? What's your history with religion? What sort of background do you have? What brought you to the point you're at now? That sort of stuff, to kind of get a complete picture of what's going on. So we did that. It was great. Had a great time. Met some new people who are excited about what we're doing, and are already signed up to come out to more events, which is fantastic. And then they sent a photographer over to the house here to take some pictures, and I think Keith could have done a better job with that. Keith's our in-house photographer, who's also director. He does some amazing things. And while I'm mentioning Keith, if Keith is working on a photo project where he is taking headshots, they're black and white, and he's also doing a silhouette of that same shot. And the intent is that he's going to sort of stitch all of these pictures together in a giant sort of collage to show, look at all of the faces of the faithless. That all of these people are around you, and you probably don't even know it. We're your neighbors, and we're we're here. And so I thought it was neat that he chose to do the silhouette option, because there are a lot of people who can't be openly atheist, who can't come out and say, I don't believe. I've said this before. We have teachers in our group. They're of particular concern, because you get a student's kid or a student's parent that finds out and raises all kinds of hell. Like, that just makes their life miserable. And we already don't pay our teachers enough to deal with the bullshit that they deal with as it is. So we don't want to add any more to their plate, right? So we are working to protect their anonymity and safety. Anyway, so here's the article from May 4th, 2019, by Gary White in The Ledger. As the group's members began arriving Tuesday morning at Panera Bread in Winter Haven, one of them staked out 3 adjacent tables. By the time everyone showed up, a few people had to sit at additional tables away from the main gathering, which nobody was expecting. I'll step out of the article from time to time. We were thrilled They were thrilled that we didn't have enough room for everybody.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, good problem to have. Mary Ellen Scheit, a newcomer to the atheist community of Polk County, told one of the organizers, quote, "I can see where you're eventually going to need a bigger meeting space." Yep, you are absolutely right. That's exactly the kind of challenge the founders of the group want to face. The group, whose directors created a Facebook page about a year ago and established itself as a nonprofit in March, has about 80 members and is growing quickly, co-founder and director Sarah Ray said. And after the article published, we are well over 100. The community, a big tent affiliation of outspoken atheists, secularists, and religious skeptics, is a blend of a social group, an activist organization, and an educational entity. Quote, "Let's get involved and show people we are your neighbors. We're not boogeymen," Ray, a Haines City resident, told first-time visitors in explaining the group's purpose. Some members, including Ray and her wife, co-founder and director Becca Ray, previously belonged to humanist or atheist collectives in Orlando or Tampa, but grew tired of making the long drives to meetings. That shared background prompted the Rays and their fellow founders, Rachel and Keith McCullough of Auburndale, to create the Polk County group. Some might wonder why people would bond around their shared lack of a belief in a deity. Quote, "When people leave a God belief, they're losing more than the God belief," Sarah Ray said. Now, I'll step away and add to that, because the end of that quote is, when people walk away from religion, they're often losing more than the God. They're losing their family. Many of them. Not in all cases. They lose their friends. They lose their entire social circles. When you have your air conditioner breaks down, who do you call? Well, there's some guy at a church that runs an HVAC shop. Who comes to your house when you get sick and brings you soup? Right? Who picks you up and takes you to the doctor if you need some help? Church people. It's the community. And when you, far too often, when you say, I don't believe in that anymore, the backs turn on you. And the more culty religions, the more egregious ones teach shunning practices.
Yep.
So that's the broader context of that little mini quote.
Yeah, and if I could just add to
Please.
that, I mean, it's not only that. I mean, there is oftentimes where people lose their family and friends, their social structure, social support in situations like this. But even without that, I mean, I'm speaking for myself now because I don't feel like I lost very much when I deconverted, but there was still a feeling of isolation when all of my family and all of my friends were still Christian, and I was not anymore. And so that's at that point is when I went out looking for some kind of groups. I ended up finding the Central Florida Freethought community.
Yep.
But so whether you lose your structure or not, a group like this is important.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. And again, like people are looking for that. And when you do, if you do walk away from the church structure, there needs to be a place for people to go. There needs to be a landing pad for people to fall onto when they're coming out of those situations, and that's what we're hoping to create. And a place to be able to challenge. If you're questioning, if you're just not sure, that's fine too. Yes, we have some angry atheists in every group. That the ones that seem to proselytize for atheism, right? But you'll find the ones who will sit down with you and have just a kind of genuine conversation about, man, why do you believe what you believe? How did you get there? What methods are you using? What are you questioning? What can I help you with? Is there, can we research things together? They're in these groups too. So don't think that is not an opportunity that our groups have also. Let me try to wrap this up here. Others who were previous churchgoers concurred. Jenny Wood, an Auburndale resident attending her first meeting with her friend, said she was drawn to the idea of joining a non-church family of like-minded people. Becca Ray, who was raised in the Jehovah's Witness denomination, describes herself as an advocate for victims of religious cults. In addition to the Facebook page, ACPC has a website, polkatheists.org, and a meetup group, which advertised Tuesday's gathering. The meeting drew 6 women and 4 men, including the Rays and fellow co-founder Rachel McCullough. McCullough wore a pink t-shirt with Atheist Community of Polk County written on the back. At 39, she was one of the younger in attendance, while others ranged into their 70s. Sarah said the youngest person in the Facebook group is about 19. In the frequently asked questions section on the group's website, the founders acknowledged the negative connotation the word atheist holds for many Americans. For that reason, the Facebook group is closed, and many are not visible to the public or even their other Facebook friends. We know not everyone will agree, quote, "We know not everyone will agree with this decision, but by being unapologetically openly atheist, we're helping to change those public perceptions and over the long term make it easier for more atheists to outwardly identify themselves as such," the website says. During Tuesday's meeting, Sarah Ray said some members are mainly seeking social activity, while some firebrands are more interested in activism. She mentioned past conflicts between other atheists and local officials, including Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd. There is some deep history with our friend Grady Judd. Yep. We don't have time to get into that today, so maybe we'll do that on a future one. Ray, who works for a theme park, sort of, but kind of not, said the group seeks to assert a watchdog role in challenging perceived breaches of the separation between church and state. On behalf of the community, she wrote a letter to the Ledger in February criticizing a Florida House bill that would require public schools to offer elective courses on the Bible and religion. She sent an open letter to the Polk County School Board in March, supporting a resolution from board member Billy Townsend that opposed the use of public tax money for vouchers and for private schools. The group borrows heavily from the principles of established entities, such as the Atheist Community of Austin in Texas and the Central Florida Freethought Community, based in Oviedo. She said she aspires someday to imitate the Austin group in having a headquarters with a Freethought library. Ray spoke of adopting the American Atheists ACES program, emphasizing activism, community, education, and social. Members of the group took part last month in the Relay for Life, an American Cancer Society event in Winter Haven. It was the organization's most public appearance so far, and Ray said 99.9% of the reactions she noticed were positive. She described one exception, a man who spied the group's sign and dismissively asked, "Atheist? Are you serious?" The man followed with a displeased expression and said, "I'll pray for you." Many others participating in the relay offered appreciation, though sometimes furtively, Ray said. McCullough said some of those were teachers who are terrified of being publicly known as religious skeptics. That quote is a little bit out of context, too. We were talking about something entirely different. Such is journalism. Our job as people who can be out is to be out and to show we are good and moral people, Ray said. Later this month, the group will collect litter in Bartow as part of the Great American Cleanup. The organization will maintain a section along Berkeley Road in Auburndale through Keep Polk County Beautiful's Adopt a Road program. On the education side, ACPC will offer the first of a planned monthly series of talks May 25th at the Lake Wales Public Library. Ray said she's working to establish a bank account for the community as a nonprofit. That's taken care of now. With that in place, the organization could be listed on the Amazon Smile website and receive a small portion of transaction costs. All of that is in the works. Those attending Tuesdays, this is a really thorough article. Yeah. Those attending Tuesday's gathering discussed the discomfort they sometimes feel as religious doubters in culturally conservative Polk County, where some churches draw thousands of worshipers every Sunday morning, and many elected officials publicly express Christian faith. Scheit spoke of the culture shock she experienced after moving to Winter Haven from Asheville, North Carolina, which she described as more philosophically diverse. Wood talked of answering those who tell her to, quote, "have a blessed day," with Namaste, a common Hindu greeting, roughly meaning, "I recognize your spirit." Bartow resident Jack Rains, I love Jack. Jack is such a hoot. Attending his first meeting, said he was a Catholic until he was nearing middle age. Quote, "I'm not angry at anybody," said Rains, 75. "There were lots of little things that made me think, this is not right. It didn't make sense. The more I studied, the less I believed." Saying the group doesn't regard believers as enemies, Ray envisioned allying with churches on areas of agreement. But it seemed clear ACPC would likely differ with religious groups more often, such as in its opposition to Project Blitz, an initiative of the Congressional Prayer Caucus Foundation that Ray described as a campaign to establish pro-religion laws throughout the nation. Anywhere, quote, anywhere that religion seeks to assert control, that's where we need to be, said Ray, a transgender woman. Those people who come after me and say, you can't use the women's restroom, that all comes from religion. End quote. The breakfast, and the comments have been so loving about that in particular. Bless you. The breakfast contingent explored the question of what should be considered atheist issues. Ray spoke of involvement with LGBTQ-related matters, while Scheit suggested working for environmental protection. Others mentioned women's rights and veterans' health care as matters of concern. The newcomers seemed excited to have found a collection of philosophically compatible people in Polk County. One first-timer, DJ Martine of Haines City, proposed forming a team to compete in trivia contests, and someone else suggested having board game parties. Quote, we have a lot of ideas, and I'm not a build-it-slow kind of person, Ray said. There's so much we can do. I'm so excited. All in all, I think that was a very good article.
Yes, well done.
Yeah. So thanks to Gary White for reaching out to us and asking to do that write up on us. And I'll leave on this. There was one comment that said something to the effect of "Who cares?" when they shared this to the social media. And the fact that we've had, another 20 or 30 people join the Facebook group, and I couldn't count how many have followed us on the various social media accounts or joined the meetup. Obviously, there are people out there that care. There are people out there who are looking for a community like this, and I am excited. I can't wait to see what this thing becomes. Anyway,
awesome.
Let me give you some quick dates here just to wrap us up. Again, Tuesday, May 7th, we will be with the Central Florida Freethought community at the Polk County Commissioners meeting for a secular invocation. On Thursday, May 9th, CFFC presents the petition, maybe, unless they change their policy in time, to the Winter Garden Commission. Thursday, May 16th, we're having a breakfast social in Winter Haven. Saturday, May 25th, is our first educational meeting. We're going to be at the Lake Wales Public Library. So if you want to learn more about the programming that we're putting in place and the things that we're interested in and want to do and meet the directors and learn more about us, we're going to do that. We'll do a little presentation, and then we're going to have just some Q&A time where you can ask questions of us. You can tell us the things that you're interested in and that you want to do as a community so that we can put that on the list and incorporate those into the things that we're planning. That's May 25th. May 26th, the very next day, we're going to be in Bartow with the Great American Cleanup. We're cleaning up an area there in Bartow, and all of this information is in the events on social media. That's also going to kick off our Adopt a Road project. We have been assigned by the Keep Polk County Beautiful group a roadway in Auburndale to do as a routine, regular cleanup event. So more on that coming soon when we get that, when the paperwork ink is dry. Then on May 28th, we have a social in Lakeland, and on May 30th, we have a social in Winter Haven. So we have a lot going on already, and we're just getting started.
That's great. Great.
All right, one more time. The petition URL for the Winter Garden petition
is tinyurl.com/WG petition.
All right.
And tomorrow is the anniversary of the Grease versus Galloway decision. Just for clarity, it is May 5th. It will be 5 years that the government has blessed invocations in municipal meetings. And on May 9th, we'll be doing the Winter Garden petition, as we said.
Excellent. So if you want to learn more about us, you can go to polkatheists.org. If you want to learn more about the Central Florida Freethought community,
you can go to cflfreethought.org.
All right. And we'll be back at you with another video soon when there's some more things going on to talk about. But that's it for us at this point. Again, Joseph, thank you for coming down and
Thanks
chatting
for
with us
having me.
about us. Let's do it again sometime.
Excellent.
All right. We'll see you next time.